few things. If you're in Zoom and you have a question, it would be great if you could ask that question live. Just put up your hand, meaning the hand icon in Zoom, and someone will unmute you so you can ask your question live to Tony. That way, if he needs any clarification, then you have a chance to talk to Tony about your question. Also, if you're decent and able to turn on your camera, it's always great to see everyone, especially now that most of us are in a lockdown situation. Even more beautiful to see everyone here if you can turn on your cameras. If you're on Facebook and YouTube also, you can send in your questions, just type them in the chat. We have an expert tech team behind the scenes. It's collecting everyone's questions. They order them basically in the flow of the topic, and that's where I pick up the questions from the expert tech team. So especially that's important in Zoom, just send your question to everyone in the chat, not to me personally, because I won't see it. I'm sorry, I'm just busy with other documents. If for any chance we don't get to your question today, if you're in KAB 1 or 2, then you can take your questions to the forum. And to be sure your questions will be answered there. So I see friends are sending in questions already. Yeah, that document's hot with questions. So I think we're gonna have a really great interactive session. So I'd like to introduce Tony. Tony's been a student of Kabbalah for over 30 years and been teaching Kabbalah for over 20. He's a songwriter, singer. He also writes prose. And I'm sure there's a list of other talents that I have yet to discover about Tony. What impresses me most, I think, is his absolute dedication to his students. So Tony, great to be with you today.
Thanks, Mary. You left out house cleaning as of the last few weeks. Look, there's a speck of dust over there. Hi, everybody. Things have changed, huh? When you came to study Kabbalah, even though your heart may have been very turned on and you always had a sense of certain things, it wasn't that evident to the world in general what Kabbalah was for, or that the principles that you're learning can actually be felt in general in the physical world. Seemed to be about something, I don't know, mystical or abstract, certainly kind of invisible to the senses. And yet, things have really changed around us, haven't they? And we have a state that is affecting absolutely everyone, everywhere. And the big question, well, there's a question obviously about health, a question of life and death, or boredom, and a measurement of the quality of our lives. Question about what we would like things to be like as opposed to how they are. But the ability to actually live in this, to imagine what kind of world we want, when you know that we're living in a way in which whatever any of us do is really a kind of life and death effect on others. Not just a group of others, not just the people closest to us, but others everywhere. So the line between self and other is somewhat blurred here. I think the world in general is very, very uncomfortable with it. And that's because we just simply haven't lived that way. So we don't know how to live this way. We don't know how to live with each other. The other really interesting thing about what's going on is the nature comes and creates this force that separates us. And students of Kabbalah, even the newest students, as you deal with the fundamentals, what are they dealing with? They're dealing with how nature operates on us, with us, in us. And we're studying in order to learn this basic fundamental law of nature and how it evolves us, how it develops us, and the ultimate goal that it wants to bring us to. So we have, even at the beginnings of the path now, you have some insight and some, I hope, degree of peace in looking at what's actually occurring, because that's what you have been studying for. You've been studying in order to be able to live in the law of nature, according to it, and to see ourselves for what we really are, which is a collective, a creature, a single creature expressed as a multiplicity of people. And the whole purpose of the path of our development is to sense this, to begin to live that way, and to enter something different than the material world, because we know and we learn that the material world is nothing other than the basis of all perception through the ego, through the will to receive, through the concept of being separate and living our lives in a personally protective mode, and thinking of what we see in front of us as though it was detached from us in some way. So nature comes, the law of nature comes, separates us, sends us to our corners, has us begin to long for connection and try to understand, well, how deep is this connection? How deep is the responsibility that we hold to life? How intimately connected are we with it? How in the world can we live this way? And the most beautiful part of it is, what kind of world do we want to emerge into? And all of this is described in the study. So, and all of this is to say that that's what you're learning about, the practical application of the law of nature. And as you go on in your studies in KabU, you will be introduced to more and more practical aspects, and you'll be working all of this out and building skills that are really going to enable you to live in the new world, to understand what it can be, should be, and will be, where nature is taking us, and it will also help you help others to build this world. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the questions that came up for you in your studies, and anything that's come up for you since you've been in, forced, you've been in under house arrest. And I want to also welcome aside from the Kabbalah students, the people who are joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. So Mary, let's go.
Okay, we have a live question right off from Jeffrey Laxton. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Jeff.
Well, right now I just dropped off my daughter-in-law to work at a senior's home, and now I am waiting outside where my son's living with his mother, because we're separated, divorced. Waiting for him to wake up and watching your seminar. And what words of wisdom can we convey to our children in this new situation?
Well, my child, we're all each other's children. First of all, this is a natural process that's going on. It looks like a disease, but that's not what it is. It's the way in which nature can gently touch us and tip us towards a new and better state, a new and better way of living. If you think of all the ways that this kind of massive change that touches everybody could have happened, what's happening is perhaps the gentlest way in which it could. If you let's not count here. Let's just talk about quality. If you count, then you get into the stats and the projections, the numbers of people who die against the number of people who would have died during this period anyway. What are the net deaths and all of this stuff? Death is always there. But this is not always with us. This force for change, it's coming from nature, it's built into nature, it's part of human evolution. Changes always happen in this way, and it's happening very, very gently. All that's happening is that we're basically sent to our rooms, being asked to think, what have we been doing? How have we been thinking? How have we been treating people? What's been important to us? And it's a timeout for everybody, because we're all children in regards to the Creator, to the force of nature. And we're being gently shaken from a dream and woken up. If you're not afraid, if you understand this, and you see the adventure and the magic in what is occurring, nothing like this has happened on this scale across the whole of humanity, all together in one desire, one concern. We're all concerned about each other. We're all concerned about what's happening to everybody everywhere on the planet. When did that happen? This is a beautiful opening of the heart of the whole of humanity. Your children are they're part of the sort of dawning of a completely new age and a new kind of world. So we're all on an adventure together. You know, when we're living in our houses, I know I'm making this answer long, but with our kids and with the people that are close to us, or longing for the people that are close to us, it's like going on a huge camping trip. What's more fun than that when you were a kid? You know, you imagine what it would be like to be a pioneer, or to live someplace and have to deal with all the adventures. And this is not imagination. This is an adventure. And if you feel that the magic and the confidence and the happiness of finally receiving the possibility to live very, very differently, really well, in happiness and love and connection in general, and close to nature, and that the condition of the world and all of the bad direction that we were heading has been stopped, and we're now headed into a much better direction. And if you feel that way, then so will your kids. I hope that's okay for you, Jeff.
We have another live question from Luca. Go ahead. Luca, you can go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hello, I want to ask Tony to comment quotation from the article writing of the last generation. And I have it somewhere here, but I just want to... the world must not be corrected by the wisdom of Kabbalah before the economic correction is secured. Did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. So,
okay.
You want to know, what does that mean?
Yeah, comment. Yes.
Okay. What's happening right now is the correction of the economic concept in the world. The last generation, we are the last generation, and that term means it means those who are open to and capable of and tasked with this transformation into a world that's based on the quality of nature, the quality of the upper force, or the Creator's quality of bestowal. Bestowal means to the positive influence across everything and towards everyone, that we're constantly in this. The means by which we think of and help and take care of each other is what we now call economy, the economy. Why do we do the things that we do? If the reason that we have money is simply and an economic system based on 4% growth a year or whatever that is because of the values that we hold. Now, those values are fundamentally, money is only trust that people will carry out the good that they promised others. And that's based on the separation of access to good and the lack of trust between us. There's nothing really holding us together. What's happening right now in this transition, the first thing that's happening is the breaking of the economic system. And that's why we're all out of work. But it's not just breaking it to break it. It's being broken in order to transform the basis on which we do good. And because that's the thing that has what the highest value, ideological value of the society. Money, growth, right? So we can't move into the spiritual aspects of our relationship while we have a false ideal and a faulty reason for doing good to each other, taking care of each other. We'll see that as this unemployment and the change in what we make and why we make it happens, that you can see now that this is the first thing that is undergoing transformation. That's what happened immediately when we were sent to our homes. The thing that happened is we can't work, and we can't work for the same reasons, and we don't need all of the excess and things that we had. What we need is our lives. We need food. We need shelter. We need to be able to go outside and enjoy the beauties of nature. We need to be able to take care and educate. That's all that we need, and we don't need money in order to do that, and we don't need 90% of the things that we have. When that goes, then the whole order flips over, and it's not because we went for some kind of revolution, but because nature made it clear to us and allowed us to generate a new world. Next question.
Okay, next question comes from a viewer on YouTube, Mihai. Is it feasible to create one or more communities living as one for all and all for one, like the 300 Spartans in the 300 movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a model that might have been useful about 2 months ago. But right now, nature's raised the stakes. It's saying we are capable because we're already a global community, but we're not acting that way. We're resisting it. We already can do that on a completely global level. It'll take a little bit of time, but we can do that. I think what's really important, though, is that there is a model of the right way to do it, and that's what Kabbalah is about. There is a methodology in Kabbalah that shows what type of a community needs to be, the basis on which we should be relating to each other, and how to create this mutual field of mutual responsibility. That's what all of the work and methodology in Kabbalah and the science and everything that's charted out there is really teaching us. So there needs to be, we need to have a correct model, because if we try to be together just in order to protect ourselves, just because we're concerned that something bad is going to happen to us, or that we want to make sure that we have our material needs satisfied, it won't succeed. We have to do everything that we're doing for each other based on the fact that that is the law of nature, and we want to be incorporated into that. We want to be infused into it. We want to be the ones that express that are a channel for that, for everything else. If anything else becomes the reason that we're trying to form communities, that will fail, just like communist Russia failed. Because the idea of communism is like basically, it's a sound concept. That is the law of nature. But it can't be done for the reasons that communism did it, which was to, self-protection. That can't work. Every single part of it has to have exactly the same motivation in the heart to do it that way. And people need to learn that. There's a personal transformation that has to accompany the general transformation that we're undergoing now. So yeah, communities will be like that, one for all and all for one, but the reason for it is what has to transform in the human heart, and we need to learn that. Next question.
Next question is a live question from Estelle Danielle. Go ahead, Estelle.
Hello, Tony. Hi. Hello, Mary. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
Well, you've actually started to answer a bit of my question, because with this transition phase into a new world, I was wondering, with all the fear and all the stories going on with forced vaccinations and 5G and everything, how do we set our intention and our minds towards the new world, towards the oneness, towards the peace and the love? So what do we dream about? What do we pray for, as part of this transition and we evolving?
Thanks, Estelle. Well, there's two parts to the answer to your question. The first part is, and this takes training, and we need to do it with other people, but there's no negative thing that's happening. All of these thoughts that we have and the things that we get from the news and the fears of others that we have to deal with, they're intentional. They're part of the process. We need to learn to see everything that's occurring, even our responses of doubt, as a force, an egoistic force that needs to be accepted as good and used in order to develop the connection above it, faith above reason. Like all of these things that we're being told, they've all got to do with our egoistic response and resistance and fear. What if this, and what if they did that, and because they did that it was like a bioweapon, and what if it's all of that stuff is to bring up our own doubts about where is the ultimate authority, who's writing this book, where are the actions actually coming from? There is none else besides him. There's none else besides the general law of nature. The general law of nature is to create a creature and to bring that creature to complete fulfillment. That's it. There is no other actor. There's no other author of anything that's happening, and all the things that are happening only to get us to greater and greater freedom from this idea that there is any authority other than the good behind our development. That's why nature continually sends us those things, both externally and internally. And the method that you're learning is how to use those things that appear to the ego to be negative and understand how to work with them in order to use something higher than that, to go above it, and to create a connection of love despite that. That's number one. The other thing is to aim at wanting to be able to feel in your heart what you understand the Creator as being. You want to be able to act that way. That's it. You have to have a correct target, and you have to understand the method. You have to learn the method, and you have to practice the method. But it's a very special time because we're getting extra special help right now. The hardest thing, of course, in the process is to remember that things that appear to us in our doubt are sent to us in order to help us develop. Okay, Estelle? Mary.
Hey, Tony, related question in terms of what's happening in the world today. Bernice Drouet, joining us on YouTube, is asking, is it possible to teach the rest of the world what is truly happening? And if so, how can we do it in a way that they would understand?
Is it possible to teach? Well, it's possible to expose people to the correct idea. That's all you really need to do, because nature is doing the work in their own heart also. But we do have materials that we've produced. Other students like the students that are here learning, and Kabbalists and Kabbalist students. And we're preparing these things every day for distribution on social media. We have a thing called Coronavirus Crisis Explained by Kabbalah. And if maybe the team can put a link into the various chats so that you can take a look at the materials there. Take a look at the stuff that appeals to you, that you think would speak to people that, in your opinion, and share those things. Other than that, what we're doing is we're just trying to make it as clear and as simple as possible, and to assure people that this is good. You only have to put a drop in, because this is the direction that we're going anyway. So just exposing people to it is enough. If you are turning, if all of us are turning, sort of making our occupation now, doing something to build the new world and just sharing a little bit, that goes a long way, because that's what we're being asked to do by nature.
Okay, Roy from Singapore is asking another question about the pandemic. What is the place of the COVID pandemic within what the prophet prophesied about end times?
I don't think it. I understand the question. The target of the question is correct. But the specifics of that language is meant for different people at a different time. All of that's in the Bible and Torah. That's all Kabbalah, but it needs to be understood. Let me show you something else that may answer your question. I'll try to go through this really, really quickly. Let's see. Take a look at this. The concept of end times is just really a way of understanding a process, our process of evolution. We need to understand where we came from, where we are right now, and where we're going. So Kabbalah deals with this in this sort of three-arrow model. We were originally created as a complete unity, a single creature, actually a single desire. That's what a creature is. The creature is the entire cosmos, everything. Your heart, the people you know, the world that you see, everything is actually a single desire. And it was created in this sort of state number one as pre-material, pre-matter. Pre-matter is the integral law of nature, and it creates a field of influence called the desire or the creature, and it does that in order to fulfill it. And in order to fulfill it, it descends into matter. What's matter? Well, matter has to do with egoism. That the desire sees itself suddenly as separated. It comes down to the material world, and that's where it experiences time and space and matter. And it's that whole process of where we are now in the material world is simply the resistance to the fact that we are a single creature, and we start experiencing ourselves as separated. We develop a whole series of a progression of desires that make us feel as though there's time and space until we finally get to a point, see that red circle where we are. It's not end times, it's not the end. This is the transition point between the state of separation, and we're neither in the state of separation any longer, nor are we in the state number 3 of reunion, which is like post-matter or the spiritual world, because we have to understand the quality and the law that's required in order to enter that spiritual third state and kind of ascend in goodness. That's what the prophets were talking about. And that's where we are now. We're in that transition between the material, post-material world, between separation and unity. Unity as we are a single creature that has been evolving in order to return to a conscious unity. It doesn't mean that everything that we see gets blown away. It means that the reason why we connect and the quality of life for us changes from what we would call material and negative and difficult into one of goodness, fulfillment, and the unity of humanity. That process, those 3 arrows, is what the biblical prophets were talking about. But they were talking about it in an arcane language for people of a certain experience. But we are far beyond that, and we can learn very directly because we have a scientific language that can sort of grip onto that concept without superstition. Next question.
Next question comes from a viewer on YouTube, Nita Bakhtiar. Are we going to a new parallel universe?
Well, no, we're going to a single whole universe. We were living in a parallel. That is, that we think of the physical world and the spiritual world as though they were different worlds or different dimensions and so on. We're the ones who make that separation. Our parallel is good and bad. How things turn out well or they turn out badly. They turn out according to the quality of our perception of reality, not according to any objective thing. The world we see is determined by our own qualities, and it's not that we're going to a parallel one. We are going to the fulfillment of this one. We're going to be able to see what its true nature is, and we're going to live in that true nature. I mean, it's not like there's nothing for us to do. There's things we have to do. We have to make this sort of interchange, and we have to want to live in unity with each other. The connection is the answer. There is nothing other than that. Connection and mutual responsibility, and understanding that before we used to work for the quantity of life, the things of life. Now we are going to be, our employment is not going to be, we're going out the door, we're going to work, we're going to produce it. We don't need to do that. You know, we only need about 10% of the population in order to produce everything that's needed in the world. What we're going to be engaged in now is we're going to be workers in the quality of life. So that is what we have always wanted. That is the parallel that we had made, placed in the future, made as though it existed on some other plane. No, now the planes are coming together, and the world of good and bad becomes the good world.
Hey, good morning, Maria. We have a live question from Maria Alejandra Garcia. What a beautiful name. Good morning, Maria.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the live today. My question is we are expecting to have a new world or become to create it, and maybe the coronavirus could be a clue to reach it. How we overcome the psychological problem that all the population face nowadays, like depression, like difficulties to communicate, different kind of symptoms, illness, sorry, regarding to the psychology. Is this can be obstacle to overcome to reach the goal to have this new world?
It's not an obstacle at all. The controls, the thing that affects the change, has got nothing to do with what others are doing. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that there are 8 billion people. There's one person. There's one creature. There's one creature and the creator. There's just the creature and the integral law of nature. That's it. What you do in your heart, and what you want to do, what you desire to do, what all of these things that are occurring, what kind of a deficiency and desire is created in your heart, and the connection that you make with people because of that is more powerful than everything else, because none of that stuff actually exists. That's all illusionary. Illusion. That's an illusion. In the sense that there's no power in that. Nothing can stand against the law of nature. Everything keeps the law of nature. It just thinks it isn't. Depression is separation. It comes from separation. And it doesn't, you don't have to be a master of connection either. You just need to want it. And that connection between you and the other people who are learning here, and as you go on, you will learn the practical aspects of that method. That is the control room of reality. That will affect the world and everything else that's in it, all levels of life. Don't be fooled into thinking that we have to put everything or anything in order first. All that we have to do is work on the method, the Kabbalistic method of connection. The law that we need in order to enter that third arrow going up, it's just one law, and that law is love your friend as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Why? If you think about what that phrase means, and why that's a law. Your friend is yourself. This is a literal request. It's saying, see others in the entire world as aspects of the same self, because they are. And if we look at that as a single body, and that everything that's happening with friends, with people, with the whole world, that is the self, and those are the friends, and that's one thing. If the attitude towards all of that is an integral attitude, you've entered. And whatever else you have to deal with is just an opportunity to care for others and to love them as yourself. We don't have to wait for them to do anything. It's up to the single self, and you're part of that, and you're all of it, so to speak. Nothing can stand against that. Next question.
The next question comes from R. Van D. Does Kabbalah teach how to overcome the principle of duality, life and death, good and bad, etc.?
Yes, it does. That's exactly what it's about, and it's not just duality. It's separation. It's to overcome the will to receive, and to learn another process called the will to bestow. It's not to stop it, it's not to kill the ego, it's to learn how to use the ego correctly, how to receive in such a way that it actually becomes giving. That is, to become part of the system of nature, and to use our, what you're calling duality, I'm calling the will to receive, Kabbalah calls it that, to use that to serve. And it actually transforms when we do that. It takes practice. But again, we're getting help right now.
Okay, another question coming from a YouTube viewer, Christopher Padilla. If we have no free will aside from the fourth factor, how do we explain things that get us into trouble? How can we protect ourselves from ourselves in corporeal reality?
Well, that's kind of there's a contradiction in your question, isn't there? If we have no free will, then everything that's happening should be happening. It's happening according to whose will? What will? And if it's happening for a purpose, and the purpose is our development, okay, no problem. So then what's our job? Our job is to learn how that system works and how to be able to use that system. There is a place of choice, and the choice is to learn, is to accept or not accept the good in the form in which it's being presented to us, because it's all good. We don't need to protect ourselves from anything except the tendency to separate. And how could this be more clear than right at the moment? The idea that we are separate, that we are not responsible for the well-being of everybody is the same thing as the appearance of the virus. So there's a meeting point between the will of the integral law of nature, the will of the Creator, and our perception of it and the sensation of responsibility that it should evoke in us. The choice is to accept this and to work with it, because if we don't, then we remain blind, and then things come upon us like, where'd that come from? Bang! I walked into a wall. Why? Because I wasn't aware of the law of nature, and I wasn't in accordance with it. That's what accounts for what we think is good and bad. That's basically it. It's a very, very, the question you're asking is very, very deep, and it's where our unhappiness and ecstasy, it's the line between, pain and ecstasy, is the ability to accept the beautiful will of the law, or the will of God, so to speak, and to understand that you're part of it. We're all part of it, and not to resist that. It doesn't mean we still feel that we're making choices. That's how it's built it. It's built it in a beautiful way because the system wants to fulfill us. It's the same thing as choice, except the whole thing is guided towards good, and it's not up to our stupid mistakes. They're only there in order to make us more and more aware of the good that's occurring. But you have to study. You have to study. And you have to, that has to be your goal, because if you have a random goal, you're not going to learn anything. The goal has got to be to learn that. Next question.
Robin, good morning. We'd love to hear your question now.
Actually, it's Alice N. I'm his wife, and he's putting his hand up for me so that my talking computer doesn't get in the way. When you feel in the heart that you are moved to do an action, and it fills you with a sense of well-being or love, and you can feel the sensations in your body as well as in the heart chakra, and sometimes even move to tears. Is this the beginning of being connected with Creator? Is this following the Creator's will rather than your own impulse to give in order to receive?
It depends on what the action is that filled your heart. In Kabbalah, action is intention. It's not it isn't something we do with our hands and feet. So what you're describing is a kind of an awakening. Like, so I'll take it. I'll take it on faith that you're talking about an intention. Let's say. The question is, even with the fulfillment that we feel, are we taking that fulfillment in order to fulfill us? Or are we observing the Creator's action through what we're doing? In other words, are we learning? Are we trying to fill ourselves as a result of the work that we're doing? Then that's not the Creator. That's not contact with the Creator. It's very, very subtle. It's a matter of sensitivity, and it requires a lot of practice and a lot of discernments that come from that practice. And we cannot do that alone. So basically, it's a kind of an awakening. But if we're doing that just on our own, especially at the beginning of the path, that's not what it is. But it's a beckoning. It's like, come closer, come closer. It has to be done in a group of people, and it has to be in relation to a group of people, and there have to be resistances to the work. There has to be, because we have to be working with the force of nature in the way that it relates to us. Yes, that impulse to feel and to measure through the heart, according to our connection with other people and the good that we feel is being directed towards them, perhaps through us. At least we have that opportunity. That's part of the correct goal. But let's not be premature about connection with the Creator. It's not how we imagine it, and it's certainly not how we imagine it from any other path that we have worked in. It's very different than that. Otherwise, the whole world would have been there already. Otherwise, it wouldn't require the kind of changes that are happening to all of humanity right now. It's very good what you're saying, but but there are other steps that confirm that that's actually what's occurring. I can't say more than that.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Before we go to the next question, just a reminder, if you're in Zoom and you have a question, there's a little drop-down arrow. Make sure that you're sending it to everyone. That way the tech team can pick it up right away. I was able to grab a couple that you sent to me privately, but I'm not paying a lot of attention to the chat in Zoom. So we just don't want to miss your question and get that in the queue. Next question, Tony, comes from YouTube viewer Zareen Pogosian. Why are so many people suffering in the world? And the most frustrating thing about it is that most of them are innocent people, yet a lot of criminals having masks of benefactors enjoy life.
So you'll ask that question. That's why it's happening. So you will ask, well then, what's good and what's bad? What's the real cause of this suffering? How do you stop this suffering? It's in order to create a need in you to make the kind of steps, inner steps, that are going to cause change in you. That's not actually how the world is. That's how we are. That's our attitude towards what has value and what doesn't. It also says something about what we admire and what we'd like to have for ourselves. The cause of suffering is that we use the will to receive as the guiding force for why we do things, for what we feel, and what what we want. That's an illustration of how out of balance we are. If we see fault in the world, we're seeing our own fault. We're seeing our inner state. You have to learn how to work with a different inner principle. That world's not real, in the sense it's not an objective world. There's no time or space out there. There aren't others out there. We project our qualities, the ones that we don't want to deal with, or the parts that we reject as of our own responsibility, we project outward, and we see a world of others doing wrong. But this world exists within our heart. So, but it's a positive to be able to see that and to feel that that's the case. That has to do completely with the will to receive as the guiding factor in our society. And what is society other than our own attitude towards life, towards ourselves? Next question.
The next question is from Mikey. I am afraid to be open and share Kabbalah because I'm a transgender woman. My main question is, do I have to follow any rules? And do I have to commit to something just like what religion stands for?
Well, Kabbalah is it's a spiritual path. It's a discipline. It's all about commitment. You have to put your ladder down in one place, make sure that it's secure, make sure that the wall that it's up against, the resistance that it's up against is solid enough, and then you begin climbing on it. Excuse me. If one does not commit, nothing happens. The ideas themselves can change our perspective. It can begin to sort of reshape. And not everybody needs to be a student of Kabbalah, because the people who work within the discipline, within the commitment, we're all one creature. So it's like the brain functions of the body of humanity. It affects everything. You don't have to do that. The first part of your question, but you can, and you can. It's not religion. But it's certainly, nothing happens in this world without commitment, without staying power. Nothing. As far as expressing it to other people, yeah, it's really difficult, and because people don't necessarily have the ears to hear it. Best way to do it is just to share some material. And the other, like books or videos or things that are prepared for general understanding, but it usually creates problems, especially if you try to do it in your family, with people who they don't need to know it. Certainly in your work, not a good idea, because people think that it's they've got wrong ideas about it, and they think that you're nuts if you're talking about it. If you just share it on social media or give somebody a book, that's the best way to do it. Oh, book. All right, let me. I just want to share a couple of things here, because people who are watching need to know this, and students need to know some of this. So let me just deal with a few of these things first. Books. Books are really important in Kabbalah. They're really part of the method. Like this is my Kabbalah for the student book. It's disappeared because it's green. This one isn't. Yeah. This is a book I keep with me all the time, Shemati, which means I heard. These are the writings of Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag, who is the teacher of Rav Lightman, who is our Kabbalist teacher. The books contain the targets and the method, and if you're a student in KabU, maybe you already know this, but if you don't, you should know that these are book packages that make up the materials that we're studying. And for a student, there are 20% off for each of these packages. The part 1 is for Kabbalah Revealed Part 1. The part 2 book package is for Kabbalah Revealed Part 2. And these books will serve you over your entire education, especially the Kabbalah for the Student book, which has incredible materials in it that you'll use throughout your whole life. And so it's 20% off for you students. And you can also, if you're not a student and you're interested in this or any other Kabbalah books, you can find it at our bookstore, and you'll find the link in the chat. And also, if you're interested in studying Kabbalah, you can begin to learn this May 3rd on KabU, which is a kind of an online university that teaches from concept to practical Kabbalah over a long sort of a good arc of development for you. Starts May 3rd, and there'll be a link in the chats there so that you can go check that out if you want. Okay. And the last thing is that when you join those at the beginning of the courses, for the first couple of courses, the way in which we do it, it costs us money to run all this stuff. Everybody who works here, the people who are helping out in the chat and in this broadcast, they're all students like the students who are new students studying now. And they're all volunteers, but we have like a huge infrastructure, and the way that we pay for it is it costs us about $25 a student per semester to run this, and we start out your learning through a pay what you wish, which is like whatever you can or whatever you want or not. If you can't, you can't. If you can, then what you wish, and that's just to enable us to be able to run this so that we can teach you, help you, learn with you. Okay, next question.
Okay, let's go to the next one. This is coming from a YouTube viewer, Satu Maluku. How can I create faith?
The process of faith has to be over something that you don't want. And that's the way it works. We're always being developed towards the Creator's quality, that is towards bestowal, towards seeing and feeling, actually experiencing the good. The way that nature does that with us is by giving us a light, a very powerful light that is opposite to us. Because we are the will to receive, and the Creator's quality, the law of nature, is the will to bestow. So when we feel anything that is the will to bestow, it feels bad to us. We don't like it. We reject it. We call it bad. We see it as a disease. We see it as something that we say hurts us. What is being hurt? What is the us that's being hurt? It's the will to receive. Now, faith has got to do with the transition between seeing something as bad, which is actually a great new light of good, and instead of going with our evaluation of it, to try to get the example, the place where it's taking us, and that faith is a simple jump for us. It's got to do with first attributing whatever is happening to the Creator or to the law of nature. It's coming from above. First of all, to know it comes from the Creator, from the force of bestowal. That's what it is, and nothing else. That alone is almost enough. And then to experience that, or to attempt to experience it as good, regardless of what it is that's in front of us. If I hate somebody, I'm going to love them above that. And the tension between those two things makes us rise to a level above our reason, which our reason is determined by our will to receive. That's our operating system. And what says that what's good and bad comes completely from the will to receive, from egoism. That's bad, says my ego. Well, we need to understand that that is not bad, that that is coming from good, and it's a light and an example of something that frees us from this will to receive. And the gap between those two things, that's faith. You have to try to live in neither of those things somehow, but to see them both, see it as a dynamic, see it as a force, and see how good actually happens to us. Is that difficult to get your head around? It requires study. You have to. This is not a self-help thing where I tell you this and then all of a sudden you go, oh, bingo, I'm going to use that tomorrow. No, you need training. And that means it takes some study, and it takes experiencing that over and over and over again in a kind of a simulator with other people, and that's what the people who are studying here are learning to do, and they will eventually be working in that kind of simulation. And then after that, you begin to function basically on faith, or you want those experiences that free you more and more and more and more from your will to receive. Okay,
hey, thank you for that question, Satu. Also coming from a YouTube viewer, Victoria Villegas. What is the difference that exists between Kabbalah and the prayers of religions?
Basic difference is that in religion, people pray in order that the Creator should change their situation. Oh, save us from this, save me from that. Something bad is happening, take away the bad and give me back the good. In Kabbalah, it is everything that happens is good. Change me so that I can see that good and feel that good. Change me so that I can serve you. The prayer of religions are aimed at a kind of a psychological soothing, and that's basically it. Because the point of prayer in Kabbalah is self-evaluation and to change our own inner state in order to rise to the level that's being presented to us. One other difference is there is no personal prayer in Kabbalah, none, because there are no individuals. Real prayer in Kabbalah is to think about the whole and the good of the whole only, ever. And please make my lost individual part capable of this. Please turn the selfish heart to see and think of the well-being of the whole, and to forget about myself. And that's prayer in Kabbalah. Next.
Okay, next question is from Esther here on Zoom. Hi, Esther. Are we required to go out and take any action? And if yes, what action is required to love your neighbor as yourself? Or is it enough to change your feelings to others in your heart?
Esther, we won't do the right actions if we don't change that intention in the heart. We'll do actions and we'll end up hurting everything and everybody. That's what we have been doing, right? That's the old world. That's the one we're leaving. Actions come first. No. Intention comes first. And that has to change. And if we change that, then every action we take, even if we can't see what it is and we think that we're stupid and we're ignorant and we don't know, if we're doing it together because of the correct intention, the outcome will be the right outcome, because it won't be our action, it will be the action of nature. We won't be blocking. Action's is not the beginning. Action is a byproduct of the correct intention. So a correct action can never come from an incorrect intention. Never.
Okay, the next question is from Joe Camposano. Why is Vedic cosmology broader than the 10 Sefirot in Kabbalah?
Well, who says that it's broader? It just means you don't understand what's in the 10 Sefirot. You don't know what they are. That's all. You know, there's all kinds of ideas about what they are out there, and unless you study from a Kabbalist who comes from the lineage, the tradition, the unbroken tradition over thousands of years, then the information you're getting about what's in Kabbalah and what a Sephira is, what the Tree of Life is complete nonsense. It has nothing to do with what it is. So just like I cannot, from my exposure to the Vedas, I look at it through a focus of Kabbalah. So I can't make the comparison for you, and it's kind of impossible that the scope of Kabbalah would be smaller than the truth, basically. It's kind of important to address this to some degree, and I don't like to address these differences because they're not differences. There is a single law of nature. That law of nature creates everything and communicates to everything and everyone according to the capability of the one who is hearing, listening, reading. Not according to what the truth is. The truth is the truth. The law is the law. How much of it we understand has got to do with our preparation for it, what our deficiency is, and what the nature of our culture is, too. Because culture is like an organ in the human body. You know, there's a culture of the East. There's the culture of there's native cultures. There's all, and the way in which the light expresses itself has got to do with the needs that are there. But Kabbalah is about the general law of nature that guides and is everything. So it doesn't have a smaller scope. It's not possible. Next question.
Okay, next question is from Kafir on YouTube. What is meant by Lishma as related to being called her? Is it wisdom?
Lishma means for the sake of the assembly of Israel. Israel is the direct connection, interconnection between everything. It's the holistic self. It is the living out of love your neighbor as yourself, and that everything that we do is towards the whole and for the whole, and we are doing it only for that. That's Lishma, called for her name. That's what that means. So it's the quality of living for bestowal. Lo Lishma means to know that such a thing exists, to wish to be there, to want to be there, which is in itself is a great thing, but to not be at that state. It doesn't matter whether you are or you aren't. If you've got the target, if that is the desire in the heart, then a person is actually doing the work. Okay.
The next question is from Mihai Basianu, viewing on YouTube. Does material unity mean that our egos will disappear?
No, the ego is the creature. The will to receive is what was created. It was the only thing that was created. It's just that our perception of what it is and how to use it is what's off. It doesn't disappear. It just fulfills its purpose as a kind of a divine force. Right now, it's like an oppositional, purely opposed to the light. It needs to be completely involved There needs to be this follow through of what the desire that created us aimed it to be. It doesn't disappear. It's used correctly. It's transformed. It's corrected. It's still there, and the fulfillment is still there, except that we take fulfillment not because we're taking it for ourselves, but we take an unlimited fulfillment by serving the law, the force that created us in the first place. Something like that. Well, we're getting close to the end. We have a busy day of live broadcasts, and so we're ending in a couple of minutes. So I want to thank you very much for beautiful questions. You're doing really, really well, and we're all doing really well, and we're getting tremendous, beautiful help from above at this moment. That's making it very clear to us where we are, and perhaps where we're going to. So thank you all very much, everybody who participated, and Mary's got a few announcements, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, great. Next semester starts May 3rd. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook and you want to sign up for the course, you can do that. Just look for the links in the chat. We have a pay what you wish tuition. If you want to participate in the course tuition or simply support the spreading of the wisdom of Kabbalah, you can do so on the Pay What You Wish page. Understanding that it's a very difficult time financially for most people. Please, if you can donate something, otherwise don't worry about it. We're in different times right now, so we're sensitive to that, and we would still love to have you join that course. The books, if you are in Kabbalah Revealed 1 or 2, you can get the course book packages with a 20% discount. Just check the links in the chat. And again, thank you all for being here. Great to see many of you back here several times, and wish you well and have a wonderful day.
This is the night when I can't wake myself. I need you here. I'm calling for your help. I keep on searching for light. My heart feels frozen in this broken piece of life. Won't you please, 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 please help me? Let's do it together. No one is ever on their own. We'll break these walls between us. Let's fill the emptiness, and we'll never be alone. We are the people. We are born to love. to